Hey, it's Jason Mraz. There is a brand new station on Pandora playing my music and other artists just like me. You'll hear songs from today and songs that make you go, I remember this song, or I love this song. Check it out for yourself. It's called Heartbeat. Turn it on and leave it on. Tap now to listen.
Stop tonight. I lost another fight. See myself, but I just caught again. Falling down, keep on hitting the ground. I always get now see what's next. Birds don't just fly, they fall down and then get up. Nobody loves without getting it wrong. I won't give up, no, I won't give in until I reach the end. No, I won't leave. When you come, you fill your heart with love. Maybe you've done enough to cut your rest. Don't get yourself up, don't need to run so fast. Sometimes we come like we get our best. I won't give up, no, I won't give in until I reach the end. No, I won't leave. Making the I've been trying to do it right. I've been living a lonely life. I've been sleeping here instead. I've been sleeping in my bed. Sleeping in my bed. So show me family, all the blood that I will bleed. I don't know where I belong. I don't know where I went wrong. I can write a song. I belong. You belong to me in my street. Oh, you belong to me in my street. Think you're right for him. What am I doing? Trying to do. Standing on ground. Standing next to me. My sweetheart. My sweetheart. If now, let's my
All right. Good morning, everyone. Oh, I love this song, but we are going to mute it. Well, we can play it for 20 more seconds. What a perfect song to usher us into the new school year. Glad to see everyone. Can't believe how fast this last summer has gone. It's just, I think the rumors are true. Our planet is spinning faster. It makes just time just go, I don't know, it's just so fast. But we're very excited to be with all of you this morning as we kick off our 2023-2024 ODS design team. We're thrilled to be with you, and we'll do a quick round of introductions as folks come in. I'll make sure I put the agenda link in the chat for everyone as well. And we are recording. We'll be saving these recordings for folks who either have to leave early or come in late or can't make the quarterly design team meetings. They'll be saved on our YouTube page, so you'll be able to access those. So I'll get started. I'm Colleen Henry. I am starting my second year at Willamette ESD as the Oregon Data Suite coordinator, and I am thrilled to be able to introduce my colleague, Missy Jacobson. She is now our lead customer support specialist. She has filled in the lovely shoes of Shannon Badger, who took a well-deserved retirement after her long years with Willamette ESD and the Oregon Data Suite last year. So we miss Shannon, but she is having fun in retirement, hanging out on the Oregon coast. And we're super thrilled to be able to spotlight Missy's great talents when it comes to customer support around the Oregon Data Suite. So what we're going to do, normally people note who attend meetings with me, in my off life, I am an introvert. And so I realize on behalf of all introverts that sometimes introductions are can be awkward and uncomfortable, especially this early in the morning, and it's still technically summer. And do we have to be on camera? So we're going to always use the chat. Although you're more than welcome for my extroverted pals out there to unmute and turn your camera on and introduce yourself in person if you'd like to do that. But in the chat, if you could introduce who you are, what job you have, where in Oregon you're at, and which district you serve. So who you are, what job you have, where in Oregon you're at, and which district you serve. You can add that in the chat for everyone to kind of meet you maybe for the first time, because we have people who are joining us from across the state this morning, and in all sorts of different user roles with the Oregon Data Suite. So if you could add that in the chat, that would be great. And we're going to use the chat Missy will be monitoring that for any questions that folks might have. You're always free to unmute yourself and ask questions as we go along, but we'll just take some time to let the song finish playing and have folks kind of introduce themselves in the chat. And then we'll come back and start our meeting. So let's unmute and people can use the chat to introduce themselves. Not easily offended, not let it go. Mess to the masses. If you aren't using, sometimes I waffle between Spotify and Pandora. This is my favorite like presentation training playlist. It's called the Family Road Trip Radio on Pandora. It is so great. I love all the songs on there. So I use it every single time I do a trainings, and I am giving it a shout out today. So if you are another person that does trainings and likes to have music, just like clean music kind of playing in the background, safe music, check out this Family Road Trip Radio. It's great. All right. That's enough of plug for Pandora. We'll get started this morning. The agenda link is in the chat, and I can see some anonymous critters joining us. So just so you know, we'll kind of review what the agenda looks like. We'll go over some summer updates, things to know about the background workings that have been going on over the summer. We'll review some before school starts tasks. We have some discussion and feedback sections to look at some potential changes that we want to present to the design team and get your feedback on. A new section that we added to the agenda are user highlights. So Missy and I have had this last year has been great going out to districts, visiting and working with teams both in person and virtually. And so we wanted to highlight some of the different tools that districts have either initiated the development of or have like created that we're super excited to share. Just these great ideas for the rest of the team to take back and kind of play around with. So we have a little user highlight section. Then we'll get into our fall calendar. We'll talk about different PD events that are happening this fall and throughout the course of the year. And then at the end, of course, if you have any questions or things that you'd like to discuss, we will open it up for that as well. All righty. So ODS summer updates for August. Our builds have been turned back on for the 2023-2024 school year. So what that means is that when you log into the Oregon Data Suite, I'll pick specifically the dashboard pages here. When you log in, you'll notice your event year should be automatically set to 2023-2024. Some folks, their default dashboard page here is attendance, and you may notice for attendance, if your school hasn't started yet, that these metrics that are school year related, that data hasn't built in it yet. So it may show that there's nothing there because school hasn't started. You'll also notice in your page filters, you will have the default. If you left last school year, you left it at currently. This year, when you look at your page filters, you'll notice it should also be listed as currently, but beginning of 2023-2024 school year. So one of the things for troubleshooting that we want to notice here is some districts, the way their school year is set up in their student information system, the student start date doesn't match the calendar start date. For some districts, the calendar date may be for the new school year, July 1st, 2023, but the student start date could be September 5th, for example. So that may impact your ability to see students show up in different reports or on different metrics if those two dates in the student information system don't match. If this student count, for example, because I have it set to currently, if this student count shows 0, definitely submit a help desk ticket to us so we can have our developers check that information and make sure that everything is mapped and aligned accordingly. So if you're noticing that this student count up here is 0, that's a good sign to submit a help desk ticket, especially if your student filter is set to this current year. So let me just kind of demonstrate that. So I have it set for this current year. So what I'm bringing in are the students that are scheduled for this school year. And I'm looking at data because my event year right here is also asking these filters to bring in data from this school year. So if my school year hasn't started yet, my data here could be 0. In fact, I'll put it on attendance just to kind of demonstrate what that could look like. But let's also talk about where to find your data, because your data from last year is still in the Oregon Data Suite. On the agenda, there is a handy cheat sheet that we created called Where's My Data? And this will walk you through step by step with screenshots how to find your data, but I'll demonstrate that as well. So I'm pulling up my current students for this coming school year, but the data I'm looking at here is for this year. There's no data available because school hasn't started in the demo build. So if I want to see how these current students did last year, I'm just going to change my event year. Let me kind of zoom in. There we go. These metric filters give me a chance to change my event year to kind of dial it back. So I'm going to change it to 2022, 2023. Again, I'm looking at my current students, but their performance, their historical performance from last year. So I'm going to give my metrics a minute to load, and then I can see that historical data from last year. So this will work with all of your different dashboard pages that you have. And then we'll show you what it looks like for progress monitoring. It works for your reports as well. And usually the report settings have a lot of different options for you to choose an event year for your current students. So you can pull that data a number of different ways in the Oregon Data Suite when it comes to looking back at your historical data. All right. So again, my current students that are scheduled to start school for this 2023-2024 school year, but I'm looking at how they performed around attendance last year. So I'm looking at their historical data when I dial that event year filter back. Okay. So that will be for many users who maybe are logging in for the first time in the next couple of weeks. When they log in, it could feel disconcerting if they log in for the attendance dashboard and something like this shows up, there's no data available. So this is where you can feel free to share that, that PDF document for folks just to dial back their event year to find that data. So those are our dashboard pages. For progress monitoring, pardon me. My filter is the same on progress monitoring as it is in the dashboard, so I won't have to change or adjust that filter. And I'm showing my 2022-2023 school year data. So current students, but last year's data. And again, you can choose whichever measure group you want to filter those students and look at those different indicators for using your measure group dropdown as well. So a little easier to find your data using the progress monitoring, less steps and less things to click. And then for the reports, again, my filter isn't changed. My filter is the same for progress monitoring and dashboards and reports. So I set it once. And then if I wanted to run an attendance report, for example, what I can do is, because school hasn't started yet, I would want to run my attendance report for last school year. And that's where I enter in the attendance year. I can enter my other variables and run that data as well. So at the beginning of the year, there's just a quick refresher on where to find your data in the Oregon Data Suite. All right, other things to note, if you're using PowerSchool or Tyler Sys and haven't rolled over yet, please let us know by submitting a help desk ticket. Missy and I have gone through the last couple of weeks to double check each school district to make sure we're seeing data build. And if we didn't see stuff build, we already sent your district's name to our developers. But again, right up here at the question mark, the second option there, report an issue, is where you're going to submit that ticket if you haven't rolled over your data for PowerSchool and Tyler Sys. And then a reminder for our synergy districts, just review to make sure your attendance reports are scheduled. These are the different report information that you'll need to look at. And then I will show you where to find directions on how to do that. In fact, we'll link it right there on the agenda. Again, if I go to my question mark on the Oregon Data Suite and click help, I'm just going to type in Synergy. And it's the Synergy EduPoint attendance reports. We'll link that right now for you. And this just describes the different reports that you'll need to schedule. And that way, when those are set up, we'll be bringing the live data once students are enrolled and in attendance. We'll be bringing that data in as part of our daily build. Okay. So after the school district rolls up for the new school year, we always recommend folks do some basic validation and mapping. We have it linked on here, some validation tips, just to make sure that we're bringing in all of your page filters, your demographic information, your teacher information. So please follow these validation tips. If you have any questions, again, submit a help desk ticket and we can work on resolving those for you. If you have new staff that need to be manually added, remember teacher accounts that are already rostered in your student information system, you won't have to manually add those. Those will be auto-created. But if you have maybe folks in a new position, whether it's like a school-wide Title I specialist who maybe doesn't have students assigned to them in the student information system, new administrators, new counselors, new IA staff who need to be have access to the Oregon Data Suite, you can add those users manually, and there are directions on how to do that listed or hyperlinked here under number 2. And then if you need to create any new filters for the school year, there's also some directions on how to do that as well as some new school year tips. And then if there's any more support that you need or trainings that you would like us, this is kind of the professional development in-service season. Please reach out to get those scheduled. Missy and I are having a road trip over the next couple months. Each week, I think we're going to be going out of Salem. We'll be heading out to Phoenix Talent this afternoon, and then we'll be heading out to North Wasco in a couple weeks, and then we'll be heading to the eastern side of the state, central and eastern side of the state as well. So we're super excited to see our partners in person. And if you have trainings that you know are coming up, or PD time that you know is coming up, even if you don't want us to come out in person, that's okay. If you've got early releases, time that you are looking at in your calendar, those are perfect opportunities to schedule us to come and even host a Zoom meeting and do some ODS training with your staff. And then finally, if you're adding any sort of new assessment vendor, or if you want to add DESA as your SEL screener, there are some vendor release instructions that you can include in there, that I should say that are included on the agenda here, that you can link to get some more information about that. And then we'll work with you to get those new assessments and get your data brought into the Oregon Data Suite. Any questions about back to school and August updates? Okay, hearing none, we'll go on to our next section of team discussion and feedback. So one of the questions that has come up, and it really is an excellent question, on some of the metrics, and I'll zoom in even further so folks can see this. On some metrics, there are focal groups listed that look like they're the same thing. So specifically, the question came in, why is ESL and LEP listed on some of these metrics? Aren't those the same students? So this metric specifically, these focal groups aren't necessarily pulled from student information flags. They're actually generated by the Oregon Data Suite system itself. So it's pulling kind of standardized table information. And in talking with the developers, we realized that is kind of confusing. LEP is a federal designation. The more we dug into it, for limited English proficiency. And in Oregon, we don't use typically the LEP designation. We use the English language learners as our designation. So what I want to bring in front of the team is whether we should, our options are, should we keep these two focal groups, or should we consolidate them into one focal group, which would probably be just ELL, since in Oregon, that's usually the common term that most districts use when talking about students who are not primary English speakers. And I'll be quiet here and let folks kind of chime in or put their feedback in the chat if they have it, as far as what they vote for. We can either keep it as is, or we can consolidate it. We can do something else that I'm not necessarily thinking of right now, if there are other ideas. So folks can either unmute, or we can, I notice a couple comments in the chat as well. Yeah, Debbie noticed that there are two numbers in the example. So the ESL and the LEP don't match. And I believe that's because the LEP is kind of like ever English learners. So if they were ever receiving EL services, or maybe they qualified, but the parent didn't want them in EL services, this data came from the demo account. I think that's why that number 126 doesn't match the ESL 111, because that would be students who would be receiving current services. Great question.
Colleen, in OD demographics like the SSID and the ADM, the LEP designation is a student's proficiency. Are they limited English proficient or not? The ESL designation is, are they getting English as a second language services?
Okay. Okay. Peter, as always, thank you for giving us that technical background and information. So with that information, because not everyone, including myself, is as well versed as Peter is on these different designations. I know we want to avoid confusing folks. And Ruth has a really good question. Can disadvantaged data be included as well? Yes, like economically disadvantaged, I believe you're asking, Ruth. That is well, that is its own ball of wax right now. I think students experiencing poverty is the new focal group heading. And I think that's going to take in migrant, poverty, and foster students under one designation. I believe that was the last thing that was updated from the DCC meeting and from ODE. But we can definitely look into adding that, Ruth. I'm just not sure how we can, or where that data is going to come from yet. But yes, I will add it to the list of things that we'll check out.
Colleen, this is Debbie in Hood River, or the Dalles. I definitely think that the ESL and LEP is confusing for some people, but I think when Peter points out the way that ODE is looking at it, is LEP includes all students who including those who have denied services, and then ELL are those receiving services. Would that is that the way that ODS is pulling that data as well, I guess, is what I'm wondering. Like, are you looking at our EL flags and including denied services in the LEP?
So for the, and this is when I should snag a developer to double check as far as which table is being pulled for the LEP. In some, I believe in some districts in their demographic data, it's there is an identifier of whether a student is limited English proficiency. And so that data is getting mapped to that identifier, the LEP identifier. Let me double check with the developers about where that data is coming from. And then in the meeting notes, I'll make sure that we add the developer input in here as far as how that information is getting tabulated here on these tables. And maybe it's about changing the metric titles to let folks know that this is not necessarily data that is dependent on your student information system flags. It's looking more at how students are identified. Well, it should just be clear as far as how students are identified within the LEP and ESL. The other curious thing about this metric is you cannot drill it down to see like the student level data in the background. So it is on, just to kind of show you the history of where it came from, it's on the demographic page. I'll give you a second for that to load. And we'll dial back for last school year here. So here it is. When I try to drill down, usually like for this, for example, this attendance percent by focal group, when I want to drill down, I can choose the individual focal group and drill down and see the student level data in the background. For this table, I can't necessarily see that. I can't see student level data for it. And there is a weird programming rule around that. But what I'll do with the developers is get more information about where this data is coming from. And if it is confusing, because there's another spot, this metric, and then there's another metric, here we go, that has LEP and ESL listed. Again, this is not drillable. So you can't see the students populating in the background, but I'll get information about where that data, which data table is being populated or pulling that information from, and how they identify students to be populating, both in this case, the count, and then the percentage in this other metric. And then we'll add that to the agenda notes for folks. Great question. So the other topic for special program terms changes, as you'll notice in this, is homeless, and a request has come in that we either consider instead of the term homeless to use the identifier as McKinney-Vento or Title 10 on these metrics, and just wanted to get the team's feedback on that proposed term change as well.
Are we safe to assume that the homeless calculation is actually pulling from the reporting around McKinney-Vento?
That's another good question. I would say yes, but I will definitely check with the developers as far as where that because again, this is part of the same table that ODS is pulling this data out of the district data. So where the ODS is looking to find those counts. And Debbie had a question in the chat, again, reaching out to Peter. How does ODE refer to this focal group for homeless? Great question.
I don't know if you heard me before.
Oh, sorry, Peter. No, can you say it again?
Yeah, so I really don't support that report, but it is referred to, I believe, as McKinney-Vento.
Okay. All right. And how do folks overall feel about changing from homeless to McKinney-Vento as our term? Okay, thumbs up. All right. Okay. Well, I will highlight that. So this change will just affect the data that you see that ODS is generating for those two metrics here, or at least one of the metrics that I'm included on here, and then on the Oregon Data Suite page that we looked at. So if you have a different term in your student information system, I think some folks, I've seen some folks use Title 10 as their identifiers in their student flags or McKinney-Vento. It's not going to change the more local decision that you have as far as if you have current program flags that you're using, it's not going to alter that. So you may see, for example, in this metric, instead of homeless, you'll see McKinney-Vento. And then in metrics that are pulling from your student flags, from your student information system, it may say Title 10. So just kind of heads up around that. Okay. We heard from Dibbles Acadience, specifically the Amplify vendor, that they are pausing data exchanges between us and the Oregon Data Suite and their website until a new data release form is submitted by the district. So I know we have a handful of folks who are using specifically the Amplify version of Dibbles Acadience. And if you are, reach out to your customer support folks and get a copy of that new data release form. We don't have a copy yet. We're waiting to get that from Amplify, but they did want to let us know that they are pausing data exchanges until that new form is submitted by districts. Pre-ACT 10th grade assessment data. We know that many districts have participated that or did participate in that last spring. If you have districts that have that pre-ACT data, we would love to get a volunteer district that would want to partner with us so we can figure out how to bring that data into the Oregon Data Suite. It's probably right now going to be a manual exchange and upload into our custom assessment tool. But we would love if districts have access, if those scores are back, if they have their data, we'd love to partner with the district and be able to bring that data in. And likewise, if you have ACT or SAT data that you would like brought into the Oregon Data Suite, we already have a protocol for that. So please reach out and we'll make sure that we get that information into the Oregon Data Suite for you. And then finally, monthly check-ins. One of the things we started last year, and that has just kind of grown in and of itself, is a monthly check-in where we schedule once a month a meeting with folks to kind of make sure that if there are any issues in the Oregon Data Suite that we address them any development requests. We like troubleshoot and start doing some research and planning around new tools, new reports. So we are strongly advocating monthly check-ins with all of our district partners. And right now we have over 80 district partners that we're trying to schedule check-ins, or that we currently have. I would say we have about 10% of those on monthly check-ins. So Missy and I love meeting with districts, and we're happy to fill our calendar and do a once a month check-in with folks. And if we don't need to meet, we don't have to meet, but it's really nice to be able to have that time to hear from districts specifically what they need, and to review different tools and to plan trainings or professional development that can be just in time for your district. So this Google form just has you submit information on what your preference would be. It doesn't have to be in person or Zoom. It could be just a phone call. So whatever is more convenient for you and your day, we'd be happy to get that scheduled for you. And I know several folks on this call check in with us regularly, and I think it has just made, I hope, for a more positive experience with the Oregon Data Suite, to know that you have that time that you can always reach out to us, but that you have some designated time that we can troubleshoot and problem solve and really make sure that we're looped in on the priorities and the activities going on in your district so that we can match the data and the tools and really make sure they're customized to the needs of your district. So another plug for those monthly check-ins. All right. User highlights. I'm so excited. When I was putting this together, I was like, oh my gosh, there's so many great things that people are doing that I'm so excited to share. So, and this is not in any particular order, just in the things that I was thinking of to want to include. So the first one is Jefferson School District. One of the things that we just on the fly figured out with them is a way to do a student schedule report hack and this is specifically in response to Senate Bill 819, which is looking at the abbreviated day for special ed students. And one of the components of that Senate bill is trying to figure out what an average student, what their schedule looks like. So this link here, it will take you to a demo to kind of show you how we hacked the student schedule report. But basically what we did is the video will show you what we were able to do is pull data already out of the Oregon Data Suite and do a quick pivot table calculation to figure out what what each student in a school, like how many unique classes they attend, to be able to figure out what a regular school day looks like, so that you would have a comparison for special ed students who are on partial day. So you'll need to be able to have, in order, when you watch that video, it's less than 5 minutes to kind of explain the Jefferson hack. You'll also need to have access on your admin to the downloads tool, because you'll want to pull up your student schedule report. So if you can have access to those two items, you'll be able to kind of work with your SPED folks and run that. I don't know why North Wasco came up. Let's pull up the demo. But you can run the your student schedule report, and then you can run it for specific schools. So in that video, I ran it for Eagle Middle School, which works really great for middle schools and high schools, because they'll already have in your master schedule those courses designated, and then you can figure out how many unique courses each student has and what their school day or school year would look like. So great hack. Thank you so much, Jefferson School District, for working with us to kind of figure that out on the fly. North Wasco, worked with them, and they had an ingenious idea again about the combined focal student filter. And I know North Wasco is here. I hope it's okay that I speak for you, although you're more than welcome to speak for yourself. But this really came from trying to track how that combined focal student group is performing, getting data on them throughout the course of the year using our local metrics and the data in the Oregon Data Suite. And this is going to be super helpful for folks who are working on progress monitoring for the integrated guidance plan and for the longitudinal performance growth targets. So ODE has a definition for what that combined focal group, the different student groups who make up that combined focal group. And this video just shows you how to create a combined focal student filter so that you can access that information either on the dashboard page, you can pull reports for that, you can look at progress monitoring, and you can have a combined focal. You'll see I built one using that. You can see how those students are performing for your district. So great idea. Love to highlight that. Thank you, North Wasco. Newburgh School District, another shout out for them. They helped to develop the community eligibility report. So if your district is on 100% free and reduced lunch, there is a template that you have, a report that you have to submit to ODE, and under our reports, if you go to pilot and test, you'll notice there is the community eligibility provision report. And then you just select the school year and you can run that report, and it is mocked up to look just like the template that you need to upload. So thank you for Newburgh for prompting that development. And that is a really great handy tool. Woodburn School District had a great idea for figuring out a way to track students who were eligible for the biliteracy seal, tracking their different assessments in the Oregon Data Suite. So we worked with Woodburn School District to develop a template, and then ODE released their template. So you can now find it in the custom assessments. If you go to create a new test, and you'll want to select create test from existing test or template. In this case, I'm going to choose the high school. And I'm going to put the school year back to 2022-23. And then you'll notice state level test, Oregon Biliteracy Seal Tracker. I'm going to click on that. And then this is where I put my new test information. So I can, for my district, I can save, this is going to be the I'm going to start this current school year. It's a custom assessment. And then it can be available to the entire district, but really it's just for high school reporting. And then you can see what the assessment looks like. So these are all the different column areas that you'll need in order to submit this template to that smart sheet. So you can you can save it. Oh, I have to make a test offering. So your test offering is really how often you want to track that data. So if you're going to enter your assessment data one time a year, maybe at the end of the school year, the end of May, we'll add that as a new offering. There we go. Now we can save it. Oh, what didn't I forget to do? Define a strand. Oh. Oh my goodness, it's not letting me define a strand. Oh, here we go. Yep, that's right. Let's try that. Okay. Let's see. Troubleshooting in real time. Oh dear. I might have to have the developers check this out. Mhm. All right, let's see. Mm. Oh, okay, hit a little bug. So this will be working after we get it troubleshot so that we can, you can actually save it as your own test template. And then you'll get a lovely spreadsheet where you can update right in your custom assessment. Let's see if I have an old one in here. There we go. I can show you what it'll look like. So this will give you the ability to input for those students who are participating in the biliteracy seal. It gives you the ability to input that data and have it right on one template that you can then download as well. So let me work out our little glitch here with our developers so that you won't need to add that strand information. And it should be easy peasy. But again, thank you for Woodburn for coming up with that idea and trying to look for a solution in the Oregon Data Suite. Junction City School District, folks may be tired of hearing me talk about this, but every time I go out to districts, I mention Junction City. They had a request last year when we met with them to create a student hot sheet dashboard. I had never heard of the term hot sheet before, but it is now something that every time I go out to districts, they're like, oh yeah, we want that too. So I'll show you what that looks like. It's not a regular dashboard. It's actually a student level dashboard. So again, I'm on my dashboard toolbar. It doesn't matter which dashboard page you land on, but what you want to find is this view student button. When you click on that, you'll see the student roster that's populated this page filter. And you can search for a specific student. In this case, I'm going to choose Tony. And that will open up my student level dashboard. And you can see here is that student hot sheet. So in the demo data, what they wanted is the ability to see that demographic information, that student contact information. And then they wanted some basic snapshots of where students were at. And specifically, this administrator in Junction City was they wanted to see, at risk, attendance, behavior, and was there something that we could create, a report that we could create? And the answer is yes, you can create a student level report in the Oregon Data Suite. This has, because it's a high school, grades and credits as well. And then if this administrator wanted to, they could print out this report for the individual student and be able to have that information super handy for them, or they could, use it just right from the screen. The other shout out goes to McMinnville, which they wanted to use the student dashboard to create a permanent record report. And this was specifically something that they used at the end of last year with their elementary schools. So they wanted to have across their district a really common CUME file report that they could add, the front office could add to every student folder that gave a snapshot of the student performance for that year. So we developed with them the permanent record report, again, using the student level dashboard. So each report is the individual student performance. And just like with the previous example, we can print one student at a time, or we could print a batch for all students. So they use their grade level filters and their front office staff printed batch reports for first grade, kindergarten, on and up. So they would have those batches and they could add them to the individual student folders. So some great ideas. We're excited to share all of those. And thank you for the different work that districts have been doing. This year, we'll continue to highlight those really great ideas in this section each month. So awesome. All right, our last section is some fall calendar information. We're going to be doing monthly office hours. Another plug for monthly check-in. If maybe that's something that's, you don't want to commit to, that's completely fine. We will hold monthly office hours first Friday of every month from 10 to 11. bring your questions, bring your issues. We'll try to highlight a different tool each month, another shortcut or different hack that we have found and that we're loving, that districts are using. So it'll be really informal. And then we also have a fall data camp set. We did a summer data camp using Canvas this year, and we had some really enthusiastic participation, and requests came out when we were out visiting districts this summer that, I want to join, but there's, not much time left. Are you going to do a fall data camp? So the answer is yes. There will now be a fall data camp that you can sign up for. It's completely free. It's open to any Oregon Data Suite user across the state. And it's just a learn at your own pace. So it's just like the summer data camp. If you've already completed that course, unless you really want to re-enroll in the fall data camp, you don't need to do that. But unlike the summer course, this is going to be longer. There'll be at least 10 weeks to learn at your own pace. So we encourage folks to share that with other people in their district who want to get into the Oregon Data Suite. And this is just designed to work one tool at a time. So really straightforward, no frills to it. And it'll be available for folks who want to take advantage of that. And then lastly, just a review of our design team meeting dates for the year. We are keeping our quarterly online meetings. Next up, we'll be meeting at the end of November. It seems so long away, but I know it's going to be here before we know it. And then at the end, we have some additional ODS resources for folks to check out as they're getting back into the swing of things and working with different systems in their district this year. And that being said, that was a lot of talking. I will stop talking and open the floor for anyone who has any questions or comments. We'll keep the floor open for folks. If not, thank you for joining us. And we wish you the best of luck in the start of your school years.
Hey, Colleen, it's Deb. I have a question for you.
Oh, great. Hey, Deb.
Hi, thank you. Good meeting. I noticed that our number of active students in Power School is different than the number of users in the Oregon Data Suite. Let's see, 2799 versus 2784. That could, well, let's see, 2790. That could just be, let me keep watching it. Could just be active enrollment changes today. So
Okay.
Totally could be.
Thank you so much for bringing that up. That is a really good reminder that, we're on a 24-hour delay. So just as Deb pointed out, if you have folks who are enrolling today and you'll notice that your student information system, it's going to have your live counts in there. By the time it cycles to tomorrow morning, those counts should catch up. If not, let us know. If you're seeing still kind of it being slightly off, in our 24-hour builds, we should pick up anyone who is enrolled today so that they're visible tomorrow in the Oregon Data Suite. Good reminder. Oh, since we are still recording, I'm going to point out where folks can find our YouTube page. We'll make sure this gets added as well to the notes. All right, so here is our Oregon Data Suite channel. Missy created this ODS overview and she did a great job. So that will be listed on there. And then we'll have a playlist for it. Our design team meetings will be there. So you'll be able to find that information there. We'll make sure it's also linked in our meeting minutes so you'll have access to that to be able to share that link with others in your district as well. Okay. Let me stop sharing there.